Discover how a poor girl's amazing spirit changed a millionaire's life in just 30 days. Emily Collins scrubbed the office floor, each stroke of the mop a reminder of her reality. At 17, she worked 3 part-time jobs, every penny a lifeline for her single mother and 2 younger siblings. The sterile scent of disinfectant mixed with a hint of despair made her stomach twist. Cleaning the prestigious office of Henry Mallard, a millionaire consumed by his ambition, felt like a cruel joke. She couldn't help but wonder if dreams were something she could ever afford. Each night the clock ticked, its relentless sound amplifying her fears. The weight of responsibility hung heavy on her shoulders. With each trash can emptied, she thought of the bills piling up at home. Could she keep the family afloat? Juggling her endless tasks and the needs of her siblings felt like a balancing act on a tightrope. And while the mop brushed against the floor, her heart yearned for something more, something that felt just out of reach. After cleaning, she pulled out her sketchbook, the pages dotted with doodles, graphic designs bursting with colors and shapes. Her hands trembled with excitement. Drawing had always been her escape, her secret. But what would Henry Mallard, a man blinded by the mundane world of profit, know about creativity? With every stroke of her pencil, the world around her blurred into a haze. She captured the essence of her childhood dreams that felt long lost, each line calling her name, igniting a spark of hope amidst the drudgery. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Then something unexpected happened. Henry caught glimpses of her creativity as he walked through his office late at night. He too battled his own demons, pressures from shareholders, cutthroat competitors lurking at every corner. Often he'd return home to an empty mansion, questions echoing in the silence. Was success really worth the price? Emily's spirit, her determination to create something authentic, started to chip away at his guarded facade. In her sketches, he saw an echo of dreams he had buried long ago. But just as their partnership blossomed, shadows loomed over his ambitious project. Rival companies circled like vultures, ready to pounce. Henry found himself teetering on an edge, swallowed by the need to protect his empire or daring to tread into unknown territory by embracing Emily's fresh vision. His mind raced as the clock counted down to a crucial meeting, the tension in his gut intensifying. As he prepared for battle, he could feel the tremors of conflict beneath his calm exterior. Emily was counting on him, her family's survival intertwined with his decisions. Could he trust her instincts, her vision, when doubts clawed at him? No longer just a cleaner, Emily's hope became a lighthouse guiding him through a storm. But could he let go of his learned instincts to embrace her creativity? Emily, too, felt the weight of expectation bearing down on her. What if she failed? A million thoughts churned in her mind, each darker than the last. Every stroke of her pencil felt like a life raft, but what if the tide pulled them under? As the deadline loomed, their futures hung in balance. One decision could shatter or save them both. Emily glanced at Henry, his expression a mix of resolve and apprehension. They faced a labyrinth of uncertainty, each knowing that whatever came next could redefine everything they believed about ambition, success, and who they truly were. The air crackled with tension, a sharp reminder that the battle was just beginning. Emily stood at her drafting table, the sketchbook open before her like an unwritten future. Each page that lay scattered around was a testament to her growth, a journey from mere survival to hope. She traced the lines of her drawings again, but this time they felt heavier,
infused with a weight she hadn't anticipated. As the reality of the meeting with Henry approached, anxiety wormed its way into her thoughts. Was she truly capable of stepping from the shadows into the light of the professional world? Days of cleaning Henry's office had provided her with insights, not just about the lavishness of his empire, but also the stark isolation that accompanied it. She had seen glimpses of the man behind the suit, a man perpetually tethered to the relentless demands of ambition. His cracks were beginning to appear, his vulnerabilities laid bare like her sketches on the floor, yearning for acknowledgement. Stepping outside the office building, the aroma of early morning coffee lingered in the air, but it did little to soothe her nerves. With every passing second, her resolve fluctuated between excitement and dread. She thought of her family, sitting around their one small table back home, glancing at the crumpled bills that loomed over them like unrelenting shadows. If her designs failed to make an impact, would they drown in the chaos of her inadequacies? What if this opportunity slipped through her fingers? But then she remembered Henry's eyes, glinting with something resembling hope when he first discovered her work. That flicker inspired a surge of determination. She was not just a cleaner anymore. She was an artist, an innovator. Drawing had been her refuge, her means of escape, but now it was a potential lifeline. As the hour crept closer, Emily made her way to the boardroom. The polished mahogany table shone under the bright lights, an arena where dreams would either flourish or die. She took a deep breath, her heart thudding loudly against her ribs. This was it, the moment that could tilt the scales from anonymity into visibility. Entering the room, she found Henry surrounded by skeletal figures in suits, each devoid of the inspiration that she cherished. Their gazes turned toward her, a blend of skepticism and curiosity dancing in the air. Clearing her throat, she prepared to present, but as she began, words seemed to intertwine like the chaotic scrawl of her sketches. She spoke about her vision, pouring her heart into the project as adrenaline surged through her veins. This was her moment to reclaim what had always been hers, creativity rooted in authenticity. However, the board members were quick to interject with questions that punctured her confidence. "What data supports your visuals?" one asked, his voice dripping with condescension. Another leaned forward, arms crossed. "How can we risk our investments on the imagination of a girl who cleans our floors?" For a fleeting moment, doubt clawed at her spine. Had she overstepped? But then she recalled how Henry had stood by her. Turning her gaze to him, she found his steely focus locked on her, as if she were the only one in the room. That glimmer of trust ignited something within her, compelling her to push past the doubts crowding her mind. "I may not have a degree or years of experience," she said, her voice steadying even as they scowled, "but I know what it means to fight for something. I know how to create from hardship." As she spoke, a newfound confidence surged through her, grounding her in purpose. Their eyes widened, perhaps for the first time recognizing the truth of her words, her unique perspective that had been overlooked. The moment held a heavy tension, the air electrified by their shared uncertainty. Later that day, Emily stepped outside, her breath escaping her in silvery clouds of anxiety and hope mingling in the chilly air. She had fought for her place at the table, but would it be enough? The outcome of the meeting still loomed uncertain, each second pressing down like a weight. As night fell, her heart still raced. This was not just about a job or a project, it was about changing the course of her life. Just then, her phone buzzed, a message from Henry lighting up the screen. "We need to talk. I believe in your vision." A rush of adrenaline coursed through her veins, but the question lingered heavy in her mind. What kind of future could they create together if he truly embraced her ideas? The storms ahead promised to be tumultuous, and as she looked toward the horizon, she couldn't shake the sense that a reckoning awaited them both. Would they rise together, Or would they be consumed by the very challenges they faced? Emily's heart raced as she pored over the implications of Henry's message. Standing in her dimly lit apartment, cluttered with her sketches and remnants of late-night
coffee, she felt a blend of apprehension and anticipation. What did it mean that he believed in her vision? The thought flitted through her mind like a moth, fragile yet drawn to the light of possibility. She was tired of merely surviving, tired of allowing fear to dictate her life. That boardroom had revealed not just her vulnerabilities, but a fierce flicker of ambition that could either ignite into a roaring fire or dwindle away unnoticed. The thought of meeting Henry again had her stomach churning with uncertainty, but it was a different kind of anxiety, the kind that pushed her to find answers within herself. For so long, Emily had lived under the weight of others' expectations, molding herself into the shadows for survival. Stepping into the light, even for a moment, awakened something deep inside her. She was ready to take a stand, to confront the tangled mess of her past and the limitless potential she felt brimming under the surface. Determined, she grabbed her sketchbook and stared at its pages, overflowing with ideas that had grown in secret. They were no longer just lines and colors. Each stroke symbolized her journey through struggles, dreams, and frustrations. This was no longer just about a job. It was a mission to assert her identity as an artist. She needed to confront the very doubts that plagued her, transforming them into fuel for her ambition. The next morning, as the sun crested over the city, bathing her workspace in a golden hue, Emily made a decision. She would not walk into Henry's office as an imposter. She would walk in as a creator, a visionary. Not just an artist, but someone prepared to discuss strategies, grounding her ideas with clarity and insight. She searched online, diving deep into market trends and data that could support her vision. It felt like sculpting clay. The more she molded and shaped her thoughts, the more tangible they became. Yet her determination was punctuated with moments of doubt. What if her ideas were not enough? What if the board members continued to dismiss her? Each time the inner dialogue veered toward negativity, she countered it with reminders of her value, her worth, and the unique perspective she offered. On the day of her meeting, as she stood in front of Henry's looming office building, a calmness she could have scarcely anticipated enveloped her. She knew the stakes. She understood the risks involved. But what propelled her was not just a desperate need to succeed. It was a profound desire to express herself, to reclaim her narrative from the depths of uncertainty. Henry looked up, his expression unreadable as she entered his office. She felt both small and undeniably powerful. The weight of the moment pressed upon her, yet paradoxically, it also felt liberating. The conversation shifted from pleasantries to business swiftly, and with each passing minute, she delivered her refined ideas with confidence. She spoke not of illusions, but of truths, the experiences that lent her vision authenticity. As she unfolded her plans, she could see him engaging, nodding quietly, absorbing her passion. The skepticism that had clouded the boardroom seemed to lift. She was no longer the girl from the floors. She was an architect of dreams, contending with powerful tides to chart her course. Yet, as their discussion unfolded, it became clear that Henry had ambitions of his own. Ideas began to collide, and Emily found herself caught in unexpected currents. Where there had been a straightforward exchange, complexities started to arise, underlying agendas threading into their aspirations. Could she trust him to support her vision without veering toward his ambitions alone? The boundaries between their aspirations blurred, and just as clarity seemed to be in grasp, Emily understood that the path ahead was fraught with challenges that could either elevate her or threaten to sink her entirely into the murky waters of corporate ambition. And as the meeting drew to a close, the question loomed in her mind. In claiming this opportunity, would she be forging a partnership or unwittingly scripting her own downfall? The storm was gathering strength, a perfect setup for the unfolding drama of her future. Emily returned to her apartment, her mind swirling with the aftermath of the meeting.
She had entered Henry's office as a fledgling artist, yet she left feeling more like a player in a high-stakes game. Her ambitions interlocked with those of a man whose vision and goals could easily overshadow her own. As the door clicked shut behind her, the weight of uncertainty crashed upon her like a tidal wave. The quiet of her living space contrasted sharply with the chaos in her mind. Shadows danced across her sketches, mocking the newfound determination she had felt just hours ago. She needed clarity, something tangible to grasp before her thoughts spiraled into doubt once more. Sinking into the worn couch, she took a deep breath, drawing upon the energy she had felt earlier. Emily reached for her sketchbook, flipping through pages that told her story, each line pulling her back to who she was before ambition played its dangerous games. While she found solace in her art, the dichotomy between her creative spirit and the corporate world loomed larger than she could have anticipated. The mingling of different energies at the meeting had unsettled her. The excitement of presenting her work collided with the unease of not knowing if she could truly maintain her artistic integrity against Henry's nebulous corporate influences. Would she be merely a pawn in someone else's game, or could she leverage this moment to elevate her vision without losing herself in the process? She closed her eyes and remembered Henry's engaged expression as she spoke. Was he genuinely interested in her ideas, or was he merely lured in by her passion, preparing to twist it to his own ends? There was a fine line between mentorship and manipulation, one she had nearly danced too close to already. Determination surged within her once more. Emily envisioned a new strategy, one that would allow her to take back control. It was time to do her homework, to dive even deeper into understanding the business landscape she was stepping into. She grabbed her laptop and began exploring articles on brand partnership and negotiation tactics, scouring case studies of artists who successfully navigated corporate waters without sacrificing their identities. The more she read, the more empowered she felt. She was learning to speak a language that was foreign to her, but essential for her future. With each new insight, she felt the clouds of uncertainty clear, revealing a path she could carve out for herself. The complexity of her situation no longer seemed insurmountable. It was simply a new layer she would learn to navigate. Hours slipped by as she fueled her newfound knowledge with the late-night inspiration that had once driven her creativity. Ideas flowed onto the pages of her sketchbook, interwoven with data and concepts she was encountering. Emily began to envision a project proposal not just as an artistic endeavor, but a multifaceted collaboration that emphasized her unique voice, her true brand. When the sun crested the horizon, a sense of purpose settled over her. She was not merely preparing to accept Henry's vision, she was ready to assert her own. The meeting in a few days would not just involve selling her idea, but also asserting her vision on equal footing. Yet a new sense of doubt crept in. If her ambitions clashed with Henry's, could she hold her ground without jeopardizing her project? That lingering question sat heavily, like lead in her gut, marking the uncertainty that lay ahead. But determination sparked anew. Emily stared at the blinding light filtering through her window, illuminating her sketches, remnants of a restless night, symbols of her commitment to navigate her own course. Though she felt more ready than ever, she understood that the upcoming confrontation could pivot in any direction. The potential for both heights and downfalls hung in the balance, amplifying the stakes and the thrill of the journey ahead. As she clutched her now vibrant sketchbook, she realized she was no longer just an artist. She was a negotiator of her own fate, one whose future was as uncertain as her own self-identity had once seemed. With the clock ticking down to her meeting, Emily stood at a crossroads between audacity and fear. Little did she know, the next challenge would come not from Henry, but from an unexpected source that would force her to confront her deepest insecurities and redefine what success truly meant. Would she emerge stronger or lose herself in the pursuit of ambition yet again? As the days slipped away, Emily honed her proposal with laser-like focus.
Each line in her sketchbook became more than just an outline of her artistic vision. It transformed into a blueprint for her ambition. She invested hours into refining her ideas, knowing that she had to present not just a project, but a compelling narrative that resonated with artistic integrity and potential profitability. Every stroke of her pencil felt like an act of defiance against the fear that loomed ever larger since her meeting with Henry. The evenings, once spent grappling with self-doubt, were now filled with the rhythmic sound of pencil on paper and the soft hum of her laptop. She was no longer just an artist responding to critiques. She was a force to be reckoned with, not afraid to assert her voice amidst the corporate noise. However, with every new concept she developed, insecurities crept in like an unwelcome guest. She questioned her capability to navigate the complexities of a business partnership. Was she equipped to make decisions on her own? Would she collapse under the weight of expectations? Each sketch revealed her talent, but also illuminated her vulnerabilities, areas where her confidence flickered like a dying flame. Still, an unexpected spark glimmered when she visited an art supply store to gather materials for her presentation. Among the aisles, she met a woman named Lila, an established artist who had faced similar crossroads earlier in her career. Intrigued by Emily's enthusiasm, Lila began sharing her own journey, stories of failures and breakthroughs, moments where she clashed with influential figures yet emerged stronger each time. Emily was captivated. Lila's honesty peeled away the layers of isolation that had developed around her. It was not just about art, it was about forging an identity and fighting for it, even against the current. The exchange renewed Emily's resolve, filling her with a sense of camaraderie that had been absent since her re-entry into the competitive world of art. Motivated by their conversation, she sought further knowledge. Emily began attending workshops on dynamic presentation skills, desperate to equip herself for the impending meeting with Henry. Ignoring the whispers of doubt, she focused on visualizing herself in control. She practiced articulating her ideas, anticipating questions, and crafting responses that reinforced her commitment to her artistic vision. As the date of the meeting approached, anxiety coiled tightly within her. With each passing moment, the shadows of self-doubt threatened to seep back, but now she had strategies, tools to combat the internal dialogue that often held her captive. On the evening before the meeting, Emily stood before a mirror, reciting affirmations she had gleaned from her workshops. "I am a creator. My vision matters. I deserve to be heard." The words resonated, lifting the weight of uncertainty from her shoulders. For the first time, she felt a blend of fear and excitement, a volatile combination that ignited her creative spirit. But as she prepared for bed, a gnawing thought surfaced. What if Henry disregarded her vision? What if their artistic philosophies clashed irreparably? Each possibility spiraled into a whirlpool of potential conflicts. Would she be able to stand firm, or would she flounder in the face of corporate pressure? Realization dawned as she closed her eyes. She could not allow herself to enter the meeting fueled solely by apprehension. She needed to embrace the duality of ambition, its beauties and dangers, its ability to forge a path toward both fulfillment and potential heartbreak. With this newfound understanding, Emily vowed to approach the meeting not just with resolve, but with authentic passion. She understood that the journey wasn't just about her art. It was about discovering her strength in the interplay of vulnerability and assertiveness. As she finally drifted off to sleep, one thought lingered in her mind. Could she navigate this complex world and emerge with both her identity intact and her ambitions realized? Tomorrow would not just test her artistry, but challenge the very core of who she was becoming. The moment to face her fears and Henry's expectations was almost upon her. The morning sun crept through Emily's curtains like a hesitant friend,
illuminating the walls filled with her sketches, each reflecting the long nights of hard work. Yet, despite the warmth and light, an icy knot tightened in her stomach. She stared at her reflection, her affirmations echoing in her mind, an inner pep talk that felt both empowering and daunting. Today was the moment when all her preparation would be put to the test, and the stakes felt higher than she had ever experienced. As she poured herself a cup of coffee, her hands trembled slightly. The weight of anticipation pressed heavily as she replayed the conversation she had with Leela. The seasoned artist had emphasized the importance of remaining true to oneself, especially in a world that frequently favored profits over artistry. "You must fight for what you believe in," Leela had said, her voice a rallying cry that still reverberated in Emily's ears. But despite that advice, the fear lingered. What if Henry's vision overshadowed hers? What if his expertise diminished the very essence of her creative voice? The coffee cup, now cool in her hands, became a tether to reality, grounding her as she reminded herself of her journey thus far. Each struggle had taught her resilience and clarity. She had survived more than opposition from a few critics. She had overcome her darkest doubts, which now felt significantly more powerful than Henry's corporate influence. As the clock ticked closer to the meeting, Emily pushed herself to prepare, breathing in deeply to quell the rising storm of anxiety. She meticulously adjusted her presentation, ensuring that every detail reflected her passion for the project. It was not merely a business endeavor, it represented her entire artistic philosophy. She infused her sketches with elements that told stories, hoping that by sharing her heart, she'd reach someone who truly understood what she wanted to create. When Emily arrived at the sleek skyscraper that housed Henry's firm, the enormity of her surroundings hit her like a physical blow. Glass walls reflected an image of her that seemed foreign, an artist surrounded by polished professionals who seemed comfortable in their world. Each step toward the conference room felt like a mini exercise in courage. Her heart raced while her mind clashed with doubts. She took a deep breath, remembering her affirmations, stepping into the room as her own. Henry was already seated, glancing through the materials he had received. The calculated flick of his eyes toward her made Emily's pulse quicken. "Morning, Emily. Looking forward to seeing what you've brought today," he said, his tone a mixture of professionalism and curiosity. As she began to present, Emily felt the rhythm of her voice carrying her deeper into her vision. Each point she made was imbued with intention. She was no longer just delivering ideas, but inviting Henry to share in the experience she had meticulously crafted. She spoke of her inspiration, the stories behind her sketches, and the vision that was chasing her, each word flowing with conviction. Yet, as she shared her passion, she noticed Henry's brows furrowed slightly at various junctures. The further she went, the more she sensed a growing tension. His brow remained knitted, and an unsettling feeling twisted in her gut. As he interjected, questioning her artistic decisions with a hint of doubt, Emily felt her previously steady resolve wavering. "Is it realistic to articulate such lofty themes? Don't you think it might alienate a more commercial audience?" he proposed, eyes sharp with scrutiny. The moment hung heavy in the air, a pivotal turn not only in the meeting but in her path. Would she modify her vision to appease him, or would she stand firm, risking it all for what she believed in? As Emily stood at this crossroads, she realized that the essence of her proposal and her very identity were on the line. Facing the corporate pressure was one thing, but confronting the essence of her passion and artistic integrity was an entirely different battle. "Henry," she began slowly, her voice steady despite the tempest within, "what if art is meant to challenge rather than please?" The question lingered in the air like a challenge thrown into the arena. And as she continued to navigate this conflict, Emily could feel the stakes rising. Could her spirit withstand the scrutiny of a skeptical millionaire, Or would she find a way to merge their visions into something truly transformative? The meeting had only just begun, and already a decision loomed that could redefine her entire career. The silence that followed Emily's bold question felt like an eternity. Henry leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, his expression inscrutable. Emily watched, her heart pounding, as he weighed her words against the rigid expectations of the corporate world. Finally, he spoke, voice calm yet tinged with disbelief. Art can be provocative, sure, but what sells? He waved a dismissive hand, a gesture that made her stomach churn. Our goal is to connect with a broader audience. You have to consider the market. How can you ensure your work reaches those who need to resonate with it? She didn't have a rehearsed response, and she felt the ground shifting beneath her feet. In his words, she recognized the threat to her vision. Emily fought against the tide of doubt rising within her. This was where the heart of her art lay, its ability to challenge, to provoke thought and reflection. Was she willing to sacrifice that for the sake of acceptability? "Henry," she began again, gathering her thoughts, "isn't it possible that our society needs more than just art that sells? Isn't there value in stirring the pot, in creating dialogues around difficult subjects?" She met his gaze, now searching for a glimmer of understanding. His face remained neutral, the flicker of irritation unmistakable. "You're an artist, but I'm a businessman. There's a balance that needs to be maintained. Something like this could easily flop if we don't tread carefully, as much as I admire the thought you put into it." The tension thickened, suffocating her enthusiasm. Emily recognized this dance, balancing art with commerce, passion with pragmatism. Yet, as she sat there, she felt a surge of resolve building within her, igniting a small flame of defiance. This was her cornerstone, her identity. To bend would be to shatter. If I don't believe in what I create, what's the point of doing it at all? Henry's eyebrow raised at her interruption. Are you saying you'd sacrifice the opportunity for success just to make a statement? Not all success is monetary, she replied, her voice gaining strength. Success is being true to myself and my vision, and if we compromise that, we lose everything worth having. I don't want to create for a cookie-cutter audience if it means robbing the work of its heart. For a moment, the opposing forces collided in the air between them, each unyielding. Emily could see the calculation brewing behind his eyes. He was weighing his options, determining if her dedication was worth the risk. She held her breath, navigating an uncharted territory filled with potential rejection or unforeseen collaboration. Her mind raced. Could she find a way to present her vision without abandoning her core? In that moment, an idea sparked. Perhaps she could pivot. What if we showcase my work as a series of limited editions? Something conceptual, where each piece provokes curiosity and conversation, maybe even participation from the audience. Henry's expression shifted slightly. There was intrigue branching from within the skepticism. Limited edition, that's more exclusive, yes. It could potentially draw interest, but it still needs to resonate widely. A glimmer of hope ignited within her. She was not entirely lost in the shadows. What if we engaged those interested in the piece directly, perhaps through workshops or events that deepen the conversation around the themes? Her adrenaline surged. This was not just about negotiation, it was about evolution. Emily felt the framework of artistic expression intertwining with the business acumen Henry represented. Henry considered her suggestion, the tension in his body relaxing a fraction as he leaned in with interest. That could work. Yet we have to minimize our risk. Running on artistic ideals and marketplace realities can be tricky. Emily's heart raced as they began to brainstorm, build up in concepts that aligned closely with her vision while addressing commercial viability. Creativity sparked. The room started to feel less like a battleground and more like a collaboration, breaking through the facade of conflict.
Navigating the thin line between integrity and economic viability seemed possible, after all. But as they continued to flesh out ideas, a twinge of unease fluttered within her. Was she still being true to herself, or merely finding a way to fit within the borders he defined? As the conversation deepened, Emily was left grappling with a burgeoning dilemma. The opportunity to compromise was in front of her, but what would its long-term effects be on her identity as an artist? The meeting took on a new rhythm, yet she could feel uncertainty simmer beneath the surface, like an unresolved melody waiting for closure. "Let's redefine this then," she proposed, but with a commitment to authenticity. "Can we agree that true art can challenge and sell at the same time?" Henry nodded slowly, the dialogue simmering between them, but she sensed that her ultimate test was yet to come. Would she discover a viable synthesis of passion and commerce, or would this journey demand an impossible choice that could threaten her artistic spirit? Emily felt an exhilarating rush after the meeting with Henry, but tension still coiled within her, a reminder of the delicate balance she was attempting to strike. The ideas they shared had sparked a flicker of hope, yet the specter of compromise continued to loom over her. She stared out of her studio window, the city pulsating with life beneath her, a constant reminder of the boldness she wanted to channel through her art. The next day, determined to push past the uncertainty, she transformed her studio into a sanctuary of creation. Canvases overflowed around her, each inviting her to explore the depths of her conscience. She picked up her brush and let instinct guide her. The colors swirled and merged, reflecting the chaotic battle in her mind. Each stroke felt liberating, yet fraught with vulnerability. As she painted, layers of her inner conflict began to reveal themselves. The vibrant hues represented the passion she held for her art, while the jagged lines hinted at the compromises she feared. With every choice of color and shape, she contemplated the themes she had proposed to Henry: dialogue, participation, and provocative intent. Yet as the morning turned into afternoon, she realized she wasn't just reflecting on her vision, she was uncovering hidden competencies. Leadership wasn't simply about ideas, but also about execution. Organizing workshops and events meant she would need to interact more with the community, to facilitate conversations she aimed to incite. Could she really guide others to engage with her art? Doubt wrapped around her like a fog, yet she chose to challenge it. Rubbing her paint-stained hands together, she picked up her phone and began outlining a plan. Each workshop would not just include discussions, but also collaborative art sessions.
Would allow participants to contribute to the dialogue visually, fostering connections that could amplify the core messages of her work. It was a risk, but it promised visceral engagement, something she craved. Hours passed as she drafted outlines and sketched layouts for the events. The act of creation began adding structure to her chaotic thoughts, reviving her growing conviction that art could indeed provoke and sell. This was not just about her. It was about authentic expression resonating within the audience, allowing them to see themselves mirrored in her work. Later, she decided to share a sneak peek of her plans with Henry. A wave of anxiety washed over her as she pressed send, a question burrowing deep within her. Would he be receptive to her newfound ambitions, or would he dismiss them as whimsical? The realization struck that she was stepping into her power, ready to embrace both artistic integrity and market needs. Henry responded quickly, his curiosity evident. "I like where you're heading. Let's discuss this further." An anticipated surge of adrenaline coursed through Emily as she prepared for their next meeting. The fragments of her resolve solidified, and she felt, for the first time in a while, that she was shaping her path. But as she basked in this newfound clarity, the weight of potential rejection loomed larger. Could she truly convince Henry that engaging the audience was as crucial as the art itself? A feeling of expectation swirled within her, igniting her ambition. This was more than just an art project. It had turned into a mission. But she knew the real test lay ahead. What if this risk unraveled the complicated dynamics of her relationship with Henry? As she stood in front of her easel later that night, she felt both anticipation and trepidation. The future of her artistic integrity felt like a cliff's edge, and every ounce of her would have to climb down to face this new reality. As she dipped her brush into the paint once more, creating a swirl of fiery red, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was not just creating art. She was digging into the heart of her own identity. This profound transformation might be her most significant work yet, and with it came the unsettling question: would she be able to hold on to her spirit, or would she lose herself in the process? The moment for confrontation was approaching. She could sense the gravity of what lay ahead, and she knew a definitive decision awaited her. Emily sat at her easel, the air thick with anticipation, the chaos of her painted canvas mirrored in her thoughts. What had once felt liberating now pressed heavily upon her. The sight of the unfinished work almost taunted her, a reminder that the path she sought wasn't solely a journey of artistry, but also one of self-assertion. She recognized the stakes. Henry's perception of her could change dramatically based on how convincingly she could advocate for her vision. As she began layering
colors into the canvas, she mentally rehearsed the upcoming conversation with Henry. Each stroke of her brush seemed to echo her fears and hopes. Could she persuade him to see the value in her workshops? Would he understand that they could transform how people interacted with her art? The crispness of rejection whispered in her ear, but she silenced it with fresh bursts of vibrant paint. With every brushstroke, she contemplated authority and vulnerability. Initially, she thought that stepping into the leadership role would amplify her artistic expression. Instead, she sensed that revealing her vision required an unsettling exposure of her innermost self. This newfound recognition catalyzed a cascade of realizations. She needed to be anchored in her belief, standing firm on the judgment of her creative merits. Compromise loomed, but so did clarity. Nevertheless, she feared whether her ambition would come off as naive to someone like Henry. She questioned if her approach had depth, or if it was merely a flicker of enthusiasm devoid of substance. Those queries twisted deep in her core as her phone pinged with a notification. Henry's response had arrived, triggering a gust of adrenaline. The notion that her ideas had resonated with him was a buoying yet daunting prospect. "Let's meet tomorrow. I want to hear all your thoughts," he had typed. The moment she read his words, renewed determination coursed through her veins. She tightened her grip on the brush, finding strength in vulnerability. Maybe this was her opportunity, a chance to present not just her art, but her vision for art's role in an interactive society. It wasn't enough to create, she needed to engage and incite thought. Unsure of how exactly to express her ambitions, she turned to her sketchbook and began drafting her presentation. She meticulously wrote down how she envisioned the workshops, creating spaces where people could break down barriers, share their perspectives, and leave a part of themselves in the artwork. The prospect of opening up the dialogues she so desperately craved took shape on paper, a blueprint that could inspire movement and connection. Hours flew as she crafted her arguments, laying them out like paintings waiting to come alive. Her articulation was methodical, each point layered with reasoning and passion. She visualized each possible objection Henry might raise, preparing robust answers that articulated the necessity of her approach, both commercially for the gallery and culturally for the audience. The late hour did little to quell her energy, but as she closed her sketchbook and surveyed her studio, Emily was struck by an enlightening thought. Her past limitations no longer defined her. The tension between her artistic aspirations and commercial realities began to dissolve. This was a moment of synthesis. Yet, as the feeling of empowerment surged within her, a chilling doubt flickered back. What if Henry didn't see the potential she envisioned? What if he questioned her capability to lead? It was no longer a question of mere acceptance. It was an assertion of her identity as an artist. Tomorrow would demand more than just a recitation of ideas. It would require Emily to confront her deepest insecurities while showcasing her capabilities.
With a steely resolve, she repeated her mantra. She was not only an artist, but also a leader in her own right. As sleep evaded her that night, the relentless pressure of her ambitions bounced within her, pushing her toward an inevitable confrontation. Would she be able to reclaim her narrative, or allow fear to stifle her authenticity? The following morning, the sun rose like a herald of impending change. Emily stood before her mirror, preparing not just her physical appearance, but fortifying her mindset. The moment approached where she would either step into a new chapter of her life or retreat back into uncertainty. What did Henry truly think of her? Would he embrace her ambitions or diminish them? Today, every ounce of her resolve would hinge on the answers he provided. As she applied her final touches of lipstick, her heart raced, a tumultuous blend of excitement and fear. This was not simply another meeting. This was the beginning of a new revelation. Emily Collins strode through the sleek corridors of Henry Mallard's office, resolutely clutching her sketchbook. Gone were the days when she shuffled through those hallways with a mop, her presence barely acknowledged. Today felt vastly different. It was the moment she had been waiting for, the genuine opportunity to take control of her narrative. The conference room lay ahead, a polished space where possibilities would collide. As she entered, she noticed Henry seated across the grand table, a mix of expectation and curiosity brewing in his gaze. She understood that this meeting was not solely about presenting art, but about challenging the very framework of her identity as an artist. Could she build upon the bridge they had begun to form, or would the weight of corporate expectations buckle her resolve? "Morning, Emily," he greeted, his tone hinting at anticipation. "I've been looking forward to your insights." With determination resetting her equilibrium, Emily began by invoking their previous discussions. "Henry," she started, her voice gaining strength, "I've thought deeply about our last meeting. I believe art must do more than please. It should provoke and engage." She opened her sketchbook to reveal a slew of constructed ideas. As she detailed her vision for the workshops, her imagination propelled her forward. Imagine a series of interactive experiences where attendees help create pieces reflecting their stories. This could open dialogues that encourage cultural reflection and elevate community involvement. Emily's passion radiated as she spoke, undeterred by the skepticism that might lurk in the back of Henry's mind. Each word was punctuated by the realization that she was presenting not just a concept, but a transformative movement, a shift from viewer to participant. Henry listened intently, his expression shifting from skepticism to intrigue. "Engagement is an interesting angle," he replied thoughtfully, "but how do we ensure that it doesn't alienate a wider audience?" In that moment, Emily felt a
flicker of tension. She could either negotiate her artistic integrity for the sake of broader acceptance, or firmly assert herself within her newfound identity. What if we crafted our marketing to highlight the audience's participation, showcasing the collective experience over individual art? This could expand our reach while retaining the integrity of the artwork. Henry's brows knitted together, contemplating her insight. The gravity of this discussion hung in the air like unspoken potential. Emily's heart raced with the thrill of navigating these complexities, each strategic point aligning seamlessly with her ideals. As they continued their discussion, Emily felt the pieces of her vision coming together like an intricate mosaic. She proposed limited editions for her original pieces, curated to evoke conversation while supporting the workshop's objectives. Henry responded with measured appreciation. "I can see where this could be a risk worth taking. It retains your originality while placing us on a path to broader outreach." The triumph of those words struck Emily profoundly, validating her journey from mere survival to asserting herself within a competitive arena. Yet, as they crafted the logistics together, exploring marketing strategies, event planning, and community outreach, she found herself grappling with deeper questions. Was she truly ready to be the voice advocating for a paradigm shift in the art world? Hours flew, and the meeting stretched into the afternoon. When dialogue transitioned from ideation to logistics, Henry inquired about the potential for conflict management and participants' diverse needs. Emily instinctively recognized that this research and preparation would solidify her role, not only as an artist but as an orchestrator of community experiences. Each rebuttal was not just a selling point, it was a confirmation of her capability to navigate the corporate world creatively. At the day's end, Emily exited the office feeling an exhilarating mix of accomplishment and anxiety. She had faced not just corporate skepticism, but also the lingering shadows of self-doubt. The leap she took felt monumental. She had learned not only to advocate for her vision, but to transform conflict into opportunity. Weeks later, the first workshop launched. The studio buzzed with excitement as attendees converged, eager to partake in creating art rooted in their narratives. Looking around, Emily felt a swell of pride. This was what success felt like: engagement, collaboration, and authentic expression illuminating her path forward. The experience wasn't flawless. Challenges arose, and not every voice was harmonious. Yet each obstacle became a lesson, fortifying her confidence and reaffirming her commitment to authenticity. As attendees contributed to the evolving pieces of art, Emily reveled in a newfound confidence, feeling each interactive session awaken not only her creativity, but a collective spirit that surpassed her expectations. At the conclusion of the series, Emily stood before a canvas fueled by collaboration, filled with colors and textures that told stories spanning diverse experiences. As applause erupted, she realized she had transcended the limitations that once defined her. No longer just a cleaner or someone seeking validation, she was an artist, a leader, a creator, fueled with purpose
and passion. This evolution had rooted itself within her in a testament to what could be achieved when one dares to confront fears and embrace opportunities. A wave of gratitude washed over her as she looked at the gathering, each face illuminated by the possibility of growth. In that moment, Emily Collins understood not just the fulfillment of her artistic ambitions, but the strength that lay in authenticity, proving that success isn't merely defined by profit or recognition, but by an enduring commitment to one's true self. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. They're transformative. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support more incredible journeys. Every click helps us grow. Comment your reactions and theories about this explosive conclusion. We want to hear your thoughts. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this empowering resolution. Don't wait even one more second to inspire others with the magic of personal growth.